Most people believe their financial struggles, their scattered relationships, and their sense of emptiness stem from not having the right strategy, the right connections, or the right opportunities. They are wrong. The problem is not what happens during your day. The problem is how you begin it. I have watched countless individuals with wealth, position, and resources still feel perpetually unstable, and the reason is always the same. They never established internal authority before the world made its demands. Today, I will show you why the first 5 minutes of your morning determine the integrity of everything that follows, and how one ancient principle can restore the order, clarity, and self-respect you have been searching for in all the wrong places. I am Rabbi Ben, and today we look at a truth most people discover too late. I have spent decades observing the patterns of those who struggle, and I can tell you this with certainty. They do not fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or even opportunity. They fail because they lack inner order. The problem begins before the first email, before the first meeting, before the first crisis of the day. It begins the moment your eyes open. Most people wake into chaos. The phone buzzes, the news shouts, the mind races toward 100 obligations before it has even settled into itself. This is not discipline, this is surrender. You hand over your attention, your peace, and your authority before you have claimed them for yourself. The morning has become a battlefield where external demands assault you before your internal foundation is even built. I do not speak theoretically. I speak from what I have witnessed. People who live this way drift, they react instead of lead. They chase instead of create. They feel perpetually behind because they never begin from a place of presence. The truth is simple but often ignored. If you do not govern the beginning of your day, the day will govern you. And if the day governs you, so will your emotions, your finances, your relationships, and your legacy. Most people are not failing in life. They are simply starting it incorrectly. That is the foundation we must address. The problem is not your circumstances. It is your leadership over yourself. And that leadership begins before you speak a single word to another human being. I have sat across from many people who, by every external measure, should feel secure. They have savings. They have stable homes. They have achieved what they once believed would bring peace. And yet, when we speak honestly, they confess a strange emptiness. They feel anxious without clear reason. They feel scattered despite having structure in their schedules. They feel disconnected from purpose even though they work hard every day. This is not a failure of success. This is a failure of structure within the self. Success without internal order is like a house built on sand. It looks solid until the winds come, and the winds always come. What I have learned is this: if your morning lacks grounding, your entire life will lack direction. The way you begin each day quietly teaches your mind what to prioritize. If you begin in reaction, scrolling through news or messages, you train yourself to live in a state of perpetual emergency. If you begin without gratitude, you train yourself to focus on lack instead of stewardship. If you begin without intention, you train yourself to drift instead of decide. I have seen marriages suffer not because of one great betrayal, but because both people lived in constant distraction and never gave each other full presence. I have seen finances crumble not because of one bad decision, but because impulsive reactions accumulated over years. I have seen health deteriorate not because of ignorance, but because the mind was never still enough to honor the body's signals. External achievements cannot compensate for internal disorder. You may build wealth and still feel poor. You may build a career and still feel purposeless. The absence of a grounded morning creates a life that feels reactive, rushed, and ultimately hollow. Here is the question that changes everything. Not what do you want to accomplish, but who are you becoming through your daily habits? Most people plan their finances, their vacations, their retirements, but they never plan their consciousness. They hope their character will improve by accident, through good intentions alone. That is not how human beings are built. You become what you practice. If you practice chaos every morning, you will become a chaotic person. If you practice distraction, you will become distracted. If you practice reaction, you will lose the ability to lead. The morning is not just a time slot. It is the moral compass of your entire day. It determines whether you will live from principle or from pressure. It determines whether you will act from clarity or from fear. It determines whether you will build something lasting or simply survive until evening. I am not speaking about perfection. I am speaking about direction. One shift practiced consistently realigns everything, but that shift requires you to make a decision most people avoid. You must decide that your inner state matters more than the world's demands. You must decide that 5 minutes of intentional silence holds more value than 30 minutes of reactive scrolling. You must decide that who you are when no one is watching determines what you become when everyone is. This is not abstract philosophy. This is the foundation of legacy, stability, and self-respect. If you are ready to examine what truly governs your mornings, write this in the comments. My biggest morning struggle is, and complete it honestly. That honesty is the first step toward structure. There is an ancient ethical principle I want you to understand deeply. The first conscious thought of the day sets the tone for your authority over yourself. This is not mysticism. This is how the mind works. When you wake, your consciousness is soft, unformed, and highly impressionable. The world has not yet imposed its noise. Your ego has not yet activated its defenses. Your mind is in a state similar to wet clay, ready to be shaped. What you allow into that space in the first moments determines the structure of everything that follows. Think of it this way. When you build a house, the first brick you lay must be level, solid, and intentional. If it is crooked, every brick that follows will also be crooked. You cannot build a straight wall on a flawed foundation. The same is true for your day. If your first thought is anxiety about what you lack, your day will be governed by scarcity. If your first action is reaching for your phone to see what the world demands, your day will be governed by reaction. If your first impulse is to chase, fix, or control, your day will be governed by chaos. But if your first moment is one of stillness, gratitude, and clear intention, your day will be governed by presence and principle. I have seen people transform their entire emotional landscape simply by changing how they begin. Not through grand reinvention, but through small, consistent leadership over the mind. This is what I mean when I say mornings are not routine. They are an act of leadership. You are either leading your mind, or your mind is leading you. And if your mind leads you, it will take you wherever fear, distraction, and impulse suggest. That is not freedom. That is slavery. Most people begin their day trying to control something. They check their accounts. They plan their tasks. They assess what is broken and what must be fixed. This is not wrong in itself, but it reveals a deeper pattern. It reveals a mind oriented toward deficiency instead of stewardship. Before you can lead wisely, you must anchor yourself in what already exists. That anchor is gratitude. I know many hear that word and dismiss it as emotional sentimentality, but gratitude is not softness. It is a psychological stabilizer. It is the difference between a person who makes decisions from fear and a person who makes decisions from clarity. Gratitude does not mean ignoring problems. It means recognizing the foundation you already stand on before you attempt to build higher. A person who begins the day acknowledging breath, health, shelter, and the ability to choose has already established internal authority. A person who begins the day scanning for threats, losses, or obligations has already surrendered that authority to circumstance. I will tell you what I have observed. People who practice gratitude before control spend less impulsively. They do not chase status to fill an inner void. They are patient in relationships because they are not constantly measuring what they lack. They are resilient in difficulty because they remember what remains even when something is lost. Gratitude is not passive acceptance. It is active acknowledgement of reality. And reality is this: you have more than you realize, and that awareness changes how you use what you have. If you begin your day recognizing your blessings, you will treat your time, your money, your relationships, and your health as sacred trust, not as resources to exploit. That shift is the ethical foundation of all lasting success. Now I must address what destroys more potential than any external enemy. Reaction. When you begin your day by immediately consuming news, messages, or notifications, you are training your nervous system to live in a state of constant emergency. You are teaching your mind that the world's chaos takes precedence over your own clarity. This is not a small problem. This is a fundamental abdication of self-leadership. Reactive people do not lead their lives. They negotiate with chaos. They spend their energy responding to whatever screams loudest, and because everything screams today, they are perpetually exhausted. I have watched people check their phones within seconds of waking. Before their feet touch the floor, they have already surrendered their attention to 1,000 external demands. Their cortisol rises. Their mind fractures into a dozen directions, and they wonder why they feel anxious by noon. The pattern is simple. Constant stimulation produces constant agitation. Constant agitation produces impulsive decisions. Impulsive decisions in finances lead to waste. Impulsive decisions in relationships lead to conflict. Impulsive decisions in health lead to neglect. All of this begins with how you start. I am not asking you to ignore the world. I am asking you to claim your mind first. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Restraint is not passivity. Restraint is self-respect. When you delay your exposure to external noise, you give your internal authority time to solidify. You allow your principles to form before the world attempts to override them. This is what separates people who lead from people who are led. Leaders do not react to every stimulus. They filter reality through their values. But if you never establish those values in the morning, you have nothing to filter through. You become a leaf in the wind, moved by whatever force is strongest at the moment. That is not living, that is surviving. And survival without direction is exhausting. Here is the principle that ties everything together. Begin with intention before absorbing information. This single discipline restores internal authority and reduces mental noise more effectively than any external strategy. Intention means you decide what kind of day you will create before the world tells you what kind of day you must endure. It means you set your focus, your values, and your energy toward what truly matters before distractions fragment your attention. I will give you a concrete example. If you wake and immediately scroll, you begin in consumption mode. Your mind is passive, receiving whatever it is fed. But if you wake and state one clear intention for the day, you begin in creation mode. Your mind is active, directing energy toward a chosen outcome. The difference is profound. Intention creates boundaries. It helps you say no to what does not align with your purpose. It helps you recognize when you are drifting. It gives you a reference point when confusion arises. Most importantly, it trains your mind to lead instead of follow. I have seen this transform financial behavior. People with clear intention do not impulse buy because their purchases are measured against their stated priorities. I have seen this transform relationships. People with clear intention do not waste time in resentment because they know what they are building. I have seen this transform health. People with clear intention honor their bodies because they understand that energy is required for what they have committed to create. Intention is not rigid planning. It is ethical alignment. It is the practice of living from principle instead of pressure, and it begins in the first quiet moments of your day, before noise drowns out your own voice. If this principle resonates with you, share which one spoke to you most clearly: gratitude, silence, or intention. Your answer will clarify what you need to strengthen first. Now we move from principle to practice. I will give you a structure so simple that you cannot claim it is beyond your reach. This is what I call the 5-minute foundation ritual. It requires no special tools, no religious affiliation, and no perfection. It requires only consistency and honesty. Here is the structure. First, 1 minute of silence. Sit upright. Breathe deeply. Do nothing else. Do not meditate on complex ideas. Simply allow your mind to settle into the present moment. This teaches your nervous system that you control your attention, not external stimuli. Second, 2 minutes of gratitude. Acknowledge 3 specific things you are grateful for, not abstract concepts, concrete realities: your health, your home, a person who supports you. Speak them aloud if possible, or write them down. This anchors your mind in abundance instead of scarcity. Third, 2 minutes of intention. State one clear goal for the day, not a task list. One principle you will honor, one value you will embody, or one outcome you will create. Make it specific, make it achievable, make it meaningful. This is not about productivity. This is about identity. You are deciding who you will be today before the world decides for you. That is the entire structure. 5 minutes, no complexity, no excuses. What this produces over time is not motivational excitement. It produces something far more valuable. It produces emotional and cognitive stability. Your mind learns that mornings are sacred ground. Your nervous system learns that clarity precedes action. Your character learns that small disciplines compound into lasting strength. This is how foundations are built, not through grand gestures but through repeated, intentional acts of self-leadership. Once you establish the 5-minute foundation, the next step is designing your environment to protect it. This is not optional. Habits do not survive in hostile environments. If your phone is next to your bed, you will reach for it. If your mornings are chaotic with demands from others, your ritual will collapse. If you do not plan for silence, noise will consume you. I want you to understand something critical. After 40, your habits become your identity, not just your behavior. What you practice daily is what you become permanently. If you practice distraction, you will become a distracted person. If you practice presence, you will become a person of substance. This is why protecting your morning is not selfish, it is responsible. Here is what I recommend. First, remove your phone from your bedroom. Charge it in another room. Use a physical alarm clock if needed. This single change eliminates the greatest threat to your morning clarity. Second, prepare the night before. Set out water, a journal, or anything you need for your ritual. Reduce friction. Make it easier to succeed than to fail. Third, communicate boundaries. Tell your family that the first 5 minutes of your day are non-negotiable. Model this discipline for your children. They will learn more from watching you honor your word to yourself than from any lecture about responsibility. Fourth, protect this practice as you would protect a financial investment, because that is what it is. You are investing in clarity, stability, and long-term peace of mind. These are assets no market can take from you. I have seen people rebuild their entire emotional lives by simply guarding their mornings. They become calmer partners. They become wiser with money. They become more present with their children. Why? Because they learned to lead themselves before attempting to lead anything else. We have reached the end, but also the beginning. I want to speak directly to you now about responsibility. No one else can design your inner life for you. No one else can decide that your mornings matter. No one else can commit to the small disciplines that build lasting peace. That decision belongs to you alone. I have given you the principle. I have given you the practice. I have given you the reasoning. but knowledge without action is merely entertainment. And I did not speak to entertain you, I spoke to equip you. The truth is this: you do not need youth to begin. You do not need wealth. You do not need a complete reinvention of your life. You need only one thing: consistency. 5 minutes tomorrow, 5 minutes the day after, 5 minutes until it becomes who you are, not just what you do. Change at this stage of life does not require drama. It requires dignity. It requires the quiet courage to lead yourself when no one is watching. It requires the humility to admit that how you have been starting your days may not be serving your highest good. But if you are willing to make that shift, I promise you this: a properly structured morning can restore what you thought was lost. It can bring back clarity when you feel confused. It can bring back calm when you feel anxious. It can bring back purpose when you feel adrift. That is the blessing of beginning well. It is never too late. It is never too small. It is never insignificant. Every great legacy, every strong family, every wise decision begins with a person who learned to govern themselves first. That person can be you. Starting tomorrow. If you are ready to take this seriously, I invite you to make a public commitment. Write this in the comments. Tomorrow I begin with intention. Let that statement be your handshake with yourself. Let it be the first brick in a foundation that will hold for the rest of your life.